dignitaries and various guests who have attended this session. And first of all, actually, I would like to thank ET for having invited us. My chairman has spoken in the morning during the inaugural, and then maybe some few things I may repeat, but I would like to say some special emphasis on what actually TRAI did for 5G and then, of course, future 6G. So first of all, of course, as you know, it all started with the reference from DOT, and then we gave an exhaustive 400 plus page recommendations, which was totally accepted by DOT. I'm grateful to them. And then the auction went on successfully and very smoothly, one of the most successful auctions. That was the one thing. And then we did not remain quite there just by giving the recommendations alone. And then in the recommendations too, we found that globally, the one thing which was actually happening was, as you all know, the adoption of 5G was not so quicker, even though it was deployed, the deployment and then the adoption. These two things were there. So we did recommend that there should be an interministerial committee and then a group which should actually take forward all the development of use cases for the verticals. So that was the very key recommendation. Because one is the deployment part is one, another thing is the adoption. So I am happy that DOT is working on that, and then here and there whenever it's required, we used to give the inputs. And then coming back to the 5G, the very key thing which we identified was the deployment of small cells, and because the 5G and 6G in future all requires densification of the cells. The densification requires the use of street furniture for the outside coverage. So that was the key thing. Again, we did a huge number, 4 of pilots, and then as per the learnings, we prepared how to use the street furniture and then the SOPs and then etc. And then we gave the recommendations for the street furniture, and happy that, glad that the DOT has, even in the midway of our consultation process itself, the small cells recommendations, they've accepted and then more or less they implemented. As a matter of that, result of that, the fastest, as you all seen that, the fastest deployment of 5G happened in India. So that is one thing which we have done a special effort as a regulator, that we did not leave at the recommendations, we made a special effort, brought out a report on the small cells and 5G deployment, and then gave a special recommendations on that. And then there also we did not stop there. So we did have, actually what happened was, the use of street furniture, one thing, recommendations from the DOT side, what DOT has to do is one thing. What the other regulators and other agencies, government agencies have to do. So this is a special effort. It was not there earlier. There was ad hoc arrangement of using the poles, etc. and all. So there was no proper this thing. We did, through the Forum for Indian Regulators, we did interact with the CERC and other regulators, energy regulator, especially CERC. We did have a meeting with them, and we brought out that there was no arrangement for the discoms. If they get some revenue out of using the telecoms on them, riding on them, that revenue they cannot use it for anything, they have to pass it on to the consumer. So they didn't have this thing to be kept with them. So there was no motivation for them. So what we did is, we actually discussed with the regulator, and then to make a provision for that, some part of that revenue out of whatever right of way they are giving it to the telecoms and others, that revenue they can retain for them. So that was the key point, actually the turning point. So the CERC has accepted that and our views on that, and then they allowed the discoms to keep certain part of the revenue for them. So it motivated them to actually streamline the process of issue of approvals for the, formalize the approvals. Otherwise it was all ad hoc here and there. So that was the another thing. So there, because of this, the consumer was benefited because the improvement of this quality of service, and then the discom is benefited and the service providers are benefited. It's a win-win situation. A triangle win-win situation has been created for that. So that is one thing, as a regulator we did that. Instead of a regulator, we tried to facilitate, we acted as a facilitator for the deployment of the 5G. So that is another thing. So we did not leave it at that stage again now. So then we went on further to how to do the development of the sustainable development goals, to meet how to actually improve the green access to the 5G deployment and the future cells. So there comes again, you might have seen that. Of course, this is not in the public domain. We closely worked with the fire and energy regulator, and again state electricity regulatory commissions also. As a regulator, we interact with them often. So we did that. What we did is that for the green access, it was 1 megawatt is the requirement minimum to be done. Minimum you should have a demand for that. So then only you can have the green access. So we did discuss with the Secretary Power and then their energy regulator, all of them, and we facilitated and then ensured that it will come down from 1 megawatt to 100 kilowatts. So that even a small cell or anything in a small area or any enterprise for that matter, they wanted to actually apply for the green cell, for the green access, they will be able to do that. So then we went one more step ahead. If it is 100 kilowatt alone means again there is an issue. So these telecom, some of the cells which will be only 10 kilowatts, 5 kilowatts and all. So what we did is that we again discussed with them, aggregate of this 100 kilowatt also should be accepted for the green access power. So aggregate of 100 kilowatt, that again has been accepted by CERC, and some of the states have adopted. We did have interactions with the SERCs also, and Karnataka has adopted that, and then it is already they are seeing the results. So these are the 4 steps which we have taken for the densification and for the deployment, and then the green access power to the 5G, and then future 6G, because future 6G also you continue to have. And even the edge data center, somebody or CDNs, if somebody wants to keep it, so he wants to have the green access, so that can be facilitated. So these are the steps which we have taken in addition to our normal course of just giving the recommendation to the government. So and then in addition to that, the deployment 5G outside and this using street furniture, it does not end there. Now we continued our journey towards the inside the building 5G coverage. So that is again an exhaustive recommendation. We sat with the town planning officers and then the TRAI, various associations, and also we did discuss with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, and then some of the state agencies who are involved with that. And then we brought out a comprehensive recommendation for the in-building solutions, where the 5G for the outside coverage with the street furniture and then their deployment, and then the inside coverage for the in-building solutions. So we continued that, and then we have brought out the recommendation. Now we are in the process of getting it implemented. It was earlier DCI, digital communication infrastructure inside the building was not actually coherently addressed. And now we brought out a mindset change that the building infrastructure, along with that, in addition to the electricity, water pipe, etc., basic amenities, telecom is also should be a part of the whole design process itself. At the inception stage itself, the planning stage itself, it has to be brought out, and then we have incorporated that we have suggested that, and then a national building code, it has to be incorporated, and the model building bylaws. So we have worked with that, and then we are continuously working with the MBBL, the MOUHA, and then some of the state governments. We did sensitize them. Hyderabad, I had been there actually. We did discuss with them, and then it is likely to see the results of that in future. About almost all the 100% buildings are going to come with the IBS inbuilt for the 5G and futuristic 5G and future 6G. Also, you require a very close indoor coverage actually required for us. So these are the 5 steps which we have taken as far as the 5G and 6G deployment, keeping in future deployments. As a regulator, it did not end with our recommendations. We just did with, that is what actually I wanted to tell you. Proactively, we did continuous facilitation of that. So this is one thing, and then we have seen that as a result of that, and I am very happy that every person and everybody has acknowledged that globally, India has done the fastest 5G deployment, and now, and that journey did not end there. And again, we thought that the 5G deployment is not sufficient. The 5G adoption, faster adoption also has to be there. So we came out on a Sumoto, a consultation paper, that how fast the adoption has to take place and what are the futuristic suggestions can be brought out. So we are in the process of doing that consultation. So almost counter comments have come, and then we need to do a final open house discussion and then come out of that. So these are the steps which we have taken proactively, seeing the future, next 10 to 20 years, automatically and smoothly the 5G and 6G rollout should happen and then adopt. So these are the 5 steps, and then FWA, somebody was talking about the FWA deployment. So here comes again, there is some regulatory issues were there. We did address that. My colleague Anil is here, I don't know, he was there when. So what we did was that the DRM, actually it is not enough that you deploy FWA, you have to have something package they have to offer. So if IPTV and other services, when they are offering, in case of a multi-cast, actually entire thing goes from one end to the edge of the set-top box to that. So it is going to waste the FWA spectrum efficiency. So what we did is that we did allow that either unicast or multicast, so that you need not have to have the entire thing to be moved on to the edge. The edge in the sense that the customer premises equipment. So you can just access that and a particular channel alone, and then it can move on. So 5G FWA is going to be more successful in India because we have addressed this issue, and DRM regulations, we have allowed them to have the technology agnostic, either multicast or unicast, anything which they can follow. So that is one thing which we have done that. So why I am telling all these things, these are all the things which we identified. We did not actually leave at that one stage, and then we identified and we tried to address that. Of course, another thing which we have suggested is that to the government, Mr. Manish Sinha is here, my colleague. So maybe one thing is that future, there can be chances of ULVNOs coming in the access service. So earlier it was 50% was the entry fee. Now we did recommend almost slash down to 1/10 of that. I would request him to see whether, because in the 5G there can be partnership models which may be coming. So the chances of ULVNOs in the access service, a small enterprise can provide that and then support service providers if they both willing to come together. So that is another step which we have taken. And then of course we did a lot of awareness programs across the country for the 5G deployment case, along with the DOT officers, field officers, and then my regional officers are also following up that. And finally I wanted to say one or two more words about the safety and secured use of ICTs. Of course, we have been working with our part, what has to be done for the safe and secure use. So we have given a lot of directions to the service providers to address this issue of spam and UCC and other issues. And also we are working on closely with the industry associations and the OEMs and others, how to improve the 5G quality of service as and when it gets deployed. But of course, to start with the MBBB, my chairman has mentioned in the morning, and subsequently we will evolve to the other two URLCC and massive machine to machine. So these are the 3 things which I thought that I will share, few thoughts. Maybe it is just to highlight and say that we are here as a regulator, not only as a regulator, as a facilitator for the development, deployment and growth of the sector, orderly growth of the sector. So with these few words, I think I must thank all of you for sharing my thoughts on this, and then we are here to continue the efforts from the regulator. Thank you.